All right, g'day. So in this series of videos, I'm going to make 4 videos where I just sort of show you how I go about marking my students' IAs. I'll just hasten to add, you're looking at me marking my own students, giving my own feedback based on my own interpretation of this rubric. You're not watching me moderate other people's IAs or watching me in the process of a moderator. This is me marking my own students' work. So I like to have, I've got my nice big screen here. I have the rubric on one side so I can just highlight the rubric as I go along, makes it easy. And I've got the IA on the other. I like to get my students to submit it as a PDF because I like the commenting function on PDFs. I think it's easier. I just think it shows up clearer on the final copy than the Google Doc comments or the Word comment function. But again, that's just personal preference. Now, the reason I'm making these videos is because all of our IAs this year are going to be marked externally because it is the exam's been cancelled due to the coronavirus. So this is May 2020. And so there's a few teachers that are just a little bit, I think, are you guys a little bit stressed because the extra importance put on exams this year? Okay, so now again, so you don't have to moderate your, so you don't have to annotate your IAs. That's okay. If you've already done it, I think it's fine. So when first thing I'm looking for in the title page, right? So they've got their code, they've got the word count, group members codes, and the date of submission, right? And everything's great. So I have a little wee check mark I've got copied to my clipboard there. And I just, yep, that's where it is. Oh, now the other thing that I do is I've got my video turned off because it is early in the morning here. And I'm actually, this is a, what do they call it? A makeup shoot. I'm re-filming the first part of this video. Soon I'm going to cut back an hour and a half in time, or an hour in time. Anyway, so I've got this little wee stopwatch. Now it takes me about 12 minutes to 15 minutes to mark a student IA, but that's on the second draft. It probably takes me closer to half an hour in the first draft by the time I mark it, and then I make a little video like this for each of my students to give them a running commentary, because I find it much easier to explain things verbally and then to go through. And then so that's just how I do that. The first draft is generally a bit longer because I'm giving feedback to the student more so. Then the second draft is usually pretty fast because, to be honest, most of my students don't change much from their first draft to their second draft. I can tell that from their Turn-It-In reports. And also, I'm just focusing on the language of the rubric to give the feedback. All right, so let's get into it. Now, when I get into the marking, I am, especially marking the second draft before submitting, that was my little test run earlier, just looking at the rubric. So the first thing I'm going to look for is, I'm looking to see what they're going to write about the theory or model, because that's typically what students go for first. So many of us prefer to listen to music while working. We study the effects of music as a condition. Okay, right. So, I mean, I don't really think their aim. Okay, that's fine in the study. All right. I don't really pay too much attention to the summary of the original study, especially in the second draft. Actually, nowhere in here does it mention the summary of the original study, so I don't worry so much. Okay, so here we use the Mozart effect as a model, which suggests that listening to classical music, specifically Mozart, improves concentration. We hypothesize this is okay. All right. Okay, so I think they've identified the theory here. And I've got some description, right? I don't really think you can summarize the whole theory in one sentence. So again, so just over here, the theory model is described. It's identified, but the description is incomplete. So possibly, so some description. Okay, as a original study, we speak music. Lyrics may prevent people from concentrating on their work, whereas without lyrics, we use. Okay. Now this is interesting. Okay. Working memory model is actually the model the study is based on. Now, so this comment is as much for me and the student, because remember this feedback is going back to the student as well, but this one is also for the moderator. So now this student was very good. I told my students after their first draft, hey, you're better off if you can use a theory or model to explain the effect. And this is a good student who's gone back and looked for the Bailey-Hitch's working memory model. She's trying to use that to explain the Mozart effect, because I think that allows for a fuller description of a background theory or model, and it allows for more discussion later on, which was why I gave them this feedback. So let's just see, and that's just a little tip, I think. As much as possible, the theory or model should be able to explain the phenomenon that's being studied in the IA. If possible, that's how it works best, I think. The working memory model is composed of central executive through saves. Okay, so here she's summarizing the working memory model. Okay, well, according to the working memory model, okay, now here she's getting into the description of the model and how it relates to the Mozart effect. Okay, so as long as different slaves. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so what she's doing here, she's really explaining why the Mozart effect according to the overloading one particular system. Okay, so that to me is the theory is described. Okay, now the aim of our study was to investigate how music with or without lyrics may affect concentration. Aim is clearly stated. Now I know that's the aim is clearly stated as phrasing from the old IA rubric, but I still like it. And what I'm looking for in the aim is that they are stating the independent variable is going to affect the dependent variable. I just want it that clearly. We chose to investigate this many people to listen to music. Okay, I'm not sure I would agree that they've fully explained the relevance here. We chose to investigate. Okay, I think, yeah, I would say that the, why can't I? Sorry, I don't know why that's doing that. Apologies. Okay, this is why I like the old version of Adobe. So I would say here that the relevance is identified. I would like a little bit more explanation here with the relevance, maybe giving a specific example. More efficient work and study environment based on music. Yeah, it's just a little bit vague in general here, I think, for a full explanation of the relevance. However, was whether so if I'm looking over here, I would say at the moment, excuse me, the aim is identified. The theory model is described. Now let's have the other thing. So now I'm going to look for the link to the students' investigation. Is that specific link there? I would say that there is more an implicit, and this is what I would say a vast majority of students do. I think there is an implicit link with the model or theory. So it's obviously based on the model of theory, but I just think they could, the student could have made it a little bit more explicit exactly how that link is made. Okay. Okay, now let's have a look at the IV and DV, the operational variables. A dependent variable was whether participants listening to music within the passage and within the reading passage. Okay. Right, the independent variable was Okay, so let's have a look. Our research hypothesis states that listening to the Beatles without lyrics while reading improves the ability to recall details, while listening to the Beatles with lyrics decreases the ability to do so. And opposite music with, okay. So what I would say here with this student is that I think they have the IV is operationalized in that, and this is a really, really tricky one, but the IA is operationalized, the IV is operationalized. That listening to the Beatles without lyrics, okay, because their music is being operationally defined. So music without lyrics, that's generally speaking, but the operation defining is the Beatles specifically. The specific condition here with or the specific use of the IV, the manipulation of the IV is stated right with the Beatles. While listening to the Beatles, now ability to recall details. So I would say that the DV is not fully operationalized, because what does it mean to recall details? This is too vague and general. We don't know how you're measuring it in your specific study. So the operational definition means how are you manipulating the variable in your specific study, which they've done, and how are you measuring it specifically in your particular study, which I don't think she's done here. They have done here. Whoops. Okay, this is supposed to be anonymous. Independent variable was whether the participants listen to music. Okay, and so I think, yeah, so I can see they've made an attempt here to complete the reading comprehension test, see Appendix 5, and that's pretty good. So, you know, if this kind of thing here, if I'm saying, if I think they're in this mark band, and I can see, and completing the reading comprehension test, see Appendix 5, this sort of thing puts me more towards a 4 than a 3, because, I mean, it doesn't make any sense, actually speaking, to operationalize your IV and DV in a research hypothesis. The research hypothesis refers to the population, not the sample. So, in actual fact, this is a nonsensical way to go about it. So this is why I don't punish students for having to try to crowbar in this really difficult process here. And if they're making an attempt to do it here, that's what pushes me, one factor that I might consider to push me to the high end of the mark band in the rubric. Now I just want to state as well, when you're looking at me mark this is not me marking as an IA moderator, which I am, but this is me marking from me. This is how I mark for my students. Because there are a lot of ways that I think even between moderators, as much as we'd like consistency, some of these, there's still some different ways of going about it. It is still very consistent, but we all have our different ways. So I just want to reiterate that you're watching me mark this for my students. Okay, so now having a look at all that, so what have they got? They've described the background theory and model. There's effectively with the working memory model, they've got an implicit link there. They've stated their aim, but they haven't quite fully explained it. They've made attempts to operational AVs, but not fully. So really, they have tried to do all these things. I would say it's definitely a 4. Why have you done that? Okay. All right, I think it's definitely a 4. Now, let's have a look if this is what I gave the student when I marked it last time. Because, you know, we'll see. There's a lot of variation that can go into this. Whoops. Where are we over here? Okay. All right, so this is their marked version, and this is, here's one I prepared earlier. I don't like how they do this. Go way over there. Okay, so that's one I've just marked, and this is the one I marked yesterday. Okay, model info subscription. Okay. Okay, and then here, we can remember model attempt is made to link. Oh, okay, so, right, did I miss something there? Maybe I skimmed it. They've attempted to link the investigation. This helps. This is just the brain. Oh, this relates to our study. As according to the working memory model, the participants may focus more on the reading passage. Okay, there we go. So so I think that there, they have actually tried to link it with their proper model. So that would, I think, put me into the top of mark band, because that's an important one that most people do. Oh, but look at that. All right, I gave them a 4 out of 6. I gave them a 4 out of 6. Look at that. I agree with myself. Okay. The DV is, did I say, is not operationalizing the hypothesis, but is in the preceding summary. Look at that, I'm still consistent. That actually, I mean, you could, I wouldn't be surprised if I mark students' work twice and I get 2 different marks, because, you know, when you're interpreting these rubrics, it is really difficult. And I think this is not just me waffling, this is something I want to actually, a point I want to make, that there is an element of subjectivity to the rubric, of course, and I always maintain, be the ruler of your own empire. So don't mark as if what you're thinking the examiners or a moderator is looking for. Mark what you're looking for. Figure out for yourself what you want students to do with this, and mark and give feedback accordingly. And the chances are, well, I mean, you're going to be more confident, you're going to give better feedback, your students are going to be more pleased, and the chances are that you're going to agree with, that the moderators are going to agree with you. And look, if you interpret something one way, and then you later on, like I did for years and years, I interpreted something one way, and then later on realized I was wrong, that's fine, right? That's better than trying to see the world through the eyes of one of the, you know, hundreds of examiners that are out there that probably all have different eyes for different things. So that's how I mark the introduction. Again, you can see I'm not giving feedback based on anything that isn't in the rubric. That's what dictates my marking, and that's what I focus on. First of all, I'm going to look for the summary of the theory or the model. Then I'm going to look for and make sure that they've made a clear link with the background theory and model. I don't really care what they say about the original study. I'm looking for a clear statement of the aim, and that they give some relevance. So, and I look at the relevance of any aim, of any explanation, is the applicability. How can it be used? I think if a student explains the relevance because it's going to give retest of reliability to the original study, I think that's pretty limited. I encourage my students to look at how they can apply, how the relevance can be applied. And then I'm looking for the operationalized variables. That's it. Okay, so just focus on what's in the rubric. All right, coming up next, I will show you how I mark the exploration.